Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. This is Yankees Unloaded, and it's following a 4-0 loss to the Tigers. We're going to get into it. Before we do, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow us on all social media, as you can see below. And let's dive into it, because today it's not going to be a super long show, Gary, because you can only talk so much about so many things, and the Yankees didn't really give us much to talk about. They went 4 for 31 today. Rodon couldn't make it through, 3 innings of work or whatever. It was just not a good day at the office. The only one who really should feel good about today was Oswaldo Cabrera, who probably should never leave the lineup when he's hitting the way he is.
He's been really good.
Games, he has a 310 average. He's hitting over 850 OPS. And we're gonna touch on Rodon. We're gonna touch on the pitching, the bullpen. Jake Cousins did really well, but we're also gonna touch on that little the love triangle in the infield: Oswaldo Cabrera, Oswaldo Peraza, and Anthony Volpe. And we'll even touch on Ben Rice a little bit. But let's get started, Gary. Let's start right with Anthony Volpe. I know today he had a hit. I'm not necessarily getting on him for a day where he went 1 for 4. That's
it was an infield single, so
yeah.
They count, but
we talked about this ad nauseum this year and off air and what have you. But at some point or another, when are the Yankees going to realize that Anthony Volpe, yes, a great fielder and everything, but his bat has been really, for the majority of the year, below average. And at this point, you have a guy in Oswaldo Peraza who just got called up yesterday, looked night and day from the last time we saw him with the new toe tap and everything, had a home run, and you don't play him in this game to get Cabrera back in the lineup. And then that's exclusive to, Volpe has to stay at short. Gary, I'm kind of tired of this because Volpe is no different than Verdugo and Torres when they slump and when they've been bad. It's like, it's time to be more open about benching Verdugo, about benching Volpe, about benching Torres, when any of those guys, when they're not playing well. And I still cannot believe we're talking about Oswaldo Cabrera the last 22 games who hit 310. And it's like the manager isn't even aware of that, because he'll just come out of the game and then, we won't see him until 5 games from now. And it's like, that's how you take a guy out of his rhythm. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that whole situation about basically demoting Volpe from everyday starter to kind of a rotation here at short?
Yeah, earn your spot, right? And we're in a position based on the season. I'm glad you introduced this. I know we talked about it before we went live. We're in a situation now where with Anthony Volpe in his last 60 at-bats, his on-base percentage is .238. Now, this is a player who obviously his goal is to get on base. He can use his legs, and also he can get an infield single, to which he showed you today. So for a player who can run, he's probably our second fastest player on this roster, to have an on-base percentage over an extended period of time, barely going past .230. You're just to the point now where in 1,000 career at bats, your batting average, you're a .227 hitter. Now, we expect Volpe to be a good player. Let's be honest, we expect him at some point or another to develop and be a more consistent bat in this lineup. But I'll tell you this, he's proven to us he hasn't done it yet. He hasn't figured it out, because just when you see him hit 290 or 320 for a couple weeks, and you want to put him in this, on this pedestal as a key contributor and a starter in this league, as a great player in this league, you've got to show that you can do that consistently. That's what makes these players great. You might hit 350 for a couple weeks, but who are you over the span of 6 months? And we're kind of seeing that this is the player. He's a player who's incredibly streaky. The broadcast will tell you, he's struggling getting his hands back. Well, great players in this league, more times than not, their mechanics are where they want them to be. That's just a given. So given this situation, when you see Peraza or Cabrera swinging a hot bat over an extended period of time, you'd like to think they'd earn a role. You'd like to believe that, but Aaron Boone has shown, and this staff has shown, they're willing to play names that they've put them in their circle of trust. They don't really take you out. And that's something that the Yankees have really committed to, is guys like Verdugo, right? Guys like Torres, what they've done in the past, they really just say, okay, you did that in 2018, 2019, 2021. That's the reason why you're going to play. Rather than what you've done this last 30 games, which is nothing, we're going to assume based on your pedigree, you're going to do it again. And I think that's a mistake for the Yankees. I think the Yankees, they don't need to just completely get rid of Volpe. I think they need to introduce the idea you need to play well to play.
No, I agree. And I think they really need to introduce this because, we'll have September call-ups soon. So we're going to have two more guys added to the roster. They'll probably split one bullpen guy, one bat. But now you're talking
Most
about
definitely.
another bat in here, right? So when you talk about another bat, hopefully, and I would imagine we've been talking about it, hopefully that will be Jason Dominguez. And if that's Jason Dominguez, then Verdugo is not an everyday starter anymore,
That's
right?
right.
Grisham, okay, it becomes a rotation, in my opinion. And, then you look at first and you have potentially Anthony Rizzo coming back, Ben Rice. We're going to touch on him. But with Volpe, my point is like Rosario is still in, waivers. We have no idea when he'll be claimed when that comes out. I saw Taylor Santos was claimed like overnight, but we have no idea about Ahmed
We
Rosario.
don't know by who.
The White Sox, the team he gave up like 7 runs to.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yep,
That's actually a good fit.
match made in heaven. But no, my thing here is that, and this is actually a good problem to have when you're the Yankees. I'm thinking their bench is going to get good enough where, I mean, keep in mind, adding Jason Dominguez, adding a John Birdie, right? Guys like that. And then you have Peraza, you have Cabrera. You have to figure out ways to play everybody. And to me, the reason I say that is because now you have multiple ways to go about, hey, we're going to just play the hot hitter. We're going to play the hot hand. You have Judge, you have Soto, you have Wells, you have Stanton. Those guys don't move. When you have Jason Dominguez, in my opinion, he does not move. He stays at left field. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of your 9 that you really are just, kind of in a position where you can feel this thing out. And those 5 guys now with the options, you have plenty of options to decide who's going to play every day. And you
What's
don't have to
crazy is I feel
decide
like we
every day.
have the players there already, don't we? Because I like the idea, like kind of where your head's at, is that once we call these guys up, you've got the personnel to now just start shuffling guys, shuffle the hot bat in the lineup, right?
Yeah.
Austin Wells has been playing incredibly well these past couple months now. Well, people use those couple months to draw a conclusion. Okay, he should be playing and be the everyday catcher, right? So having said that, why is it that at certain positions, and we had to wait for an injury for Trevino essentially to draw that conclusion, why is it that we're not capable of making the decision, okay, that guy's been playing well for an extended period of time? And I feel like Cabrera is really the player we're talking about here. Cabrera has played himself, and you might not think that he's a great player in this league, and he obviously can be streaky. That's absolutely the case, 100%. This is a player who was one of our best bats. He was actually probably our third best bat in the first couple weeks of the season. He fell off a cliff. And in large part, if you remember, Jake, and we had this conversation on the air, is that when he fell off a cliff offensively, it actually coincided with when DJ LeMahieu became healthy, went on his rehab assignment, and Aaron Boone said, when he's healthy, Cabrera's off the field. We've got our starting third baseman right there. And what it told Cabrera is it didn't matter what you were doing in the short term. We aren't playing the hottest players in the short term. We're playing the people based on their pedigree. That's a problem. It just is a problem. The sky's not falling in New York. The answers are right there. Sometimes you have the personnel in the short term. You're choosing not to use it because you're going off names and pedigree. And right now, I think Cabrera, and I think you agree, Jake, I mean, it's part of the reason you brought this up. Cabrera has done enough in the short term so that we can use this hot streak to help us win over this next couple weeks. And you know what? If he starts falling off a cliff, you can throw anybody else. You can throw Peraza in there, right? You can give Torres another burn. And Gleyber Torres, it's not just a surprise that when we took him off the field and let someone else play, the next time he got out on the field, he went out and earned it. What a surprise there.
I know. I'm with you, man. I don't think this is the and we get used to, oh yeah, this was the lineup, like Matsui and Sheffield and A-Rod and Jeter and like that's the lineup. But the reality of it is they don't have a good enough roster, in my opinion. At least the way they're hitting. I mean, Verdugo should be a 260 hitter at worst, and he's 233 right now. Like the way they're hitting, they don't have a roster where the lineup should be the same every day, and that's what I get at. So when you don't actually know who should be starting because no one has really emerged, you don't need to give this like automatic spot to Volpe. And I think like way too often, like the Gold Glove really saved the conversation for him, I would say, because if he didn't have that, he wouldn't have anything. And it's frustrating because it wasn't that long ago. I definitely remember hearing how there were quite a few members of the Yankees organization that, they were really split on Volpe and Peraza, who was the better shortstop. Some people really believed that Peraza was the better shortstop prospect than Volpe, and they didn't want to trade either of them.
And that's defensively, you're saying?
Yeah, but no, all around.
Oh, as an all-around player, which, by the way, I mean, I guess you can kind of fill in the blanks that maybe they saw a better bat, right? Maybe that's what they were seeing. Because if you were imagining as a defensive conversation, I think even with the errors, you've kind of mentioned the errors from Anthony Volpe, people make errors, that's fine. But overall, like analytically, are you making the throws? When I watch the game, do I feel like you're a problem defensively? I've never felt like Anthony Volpe was anything but a solution defensively. I think he's a really good shortstop.
Yeah.
But it's the bat. Hasn't caught up. And I understand when people say, well, he did this from this date to this date, right? All that stuff is valid. But I've always said this. You are who you most often are. And we're going to discuss Carlos Rodon right after this. And people were excited about what he's done in the short term. All that is amazing, right? Could help the Yankees. But if you're not that more times than not, well, then you're a 4-starter. Carlos Rodon, his ERA, he was kind of hovering around the 4 range. His ERA now is 4.34. This is who he is, okay? So when it comes back to Volpe, I get it when people say, well, I watched a 3-week window of a great player. Yes, but if you look across Major League Baseball, there will be a time for a lot of these players, especially starters, where you can look at a 3-week window during their season where you say, that's the player right there. Spencer Torkelson, we played him today. Spencer Torkelson looked really good today. Really good. Okay. This is the number 1 overall pick out of Arizona State. Fantastic baseball player. He looked like Barry Bonds in college. Well, don't you know, guys, that last year he hit 30-some home runs. So there was a 2-week window where he looked like the player that they were hoping, but they sent him down to the minor leagues for development. Why? Because who he is over the macro. What does he look like over the span of 300 at-bats? And the Tigers weren't satisfied with what that looked like. So when they sent him down, they said, we essentially, out of our big sample size, we need to see a more consistent player. They sent him down, brought him back up, and they're hoping to get a better version of him. But the Yankees seem to be 2 feet in the sand with something that's not working right now in the short term. And I just hope it works because obviously as Yankees fans, I don't want this to fail. I don't. You want all these people that watch our show, we want what's best for the Yankees. And sometimes what they're doing isn't what's best for this organization. And we just have to hope that it works out.
No, it's true. It's definitely true. And, I look at Peraza's 2023 and it wasn't great, right? 173 was the amount of at-bats in 2023. Right. And he only had 2 home runs and 4 stolen bases, bad 191. And, he ended up with an OPS of 539. That's pretty bad, right? I mean, like that's not good. But in that almost the same amount of, at bats, and I want to make this clear, Volpe hit 207 and had an OPS of 670. So it's not in his first, his first 100 and however many at bats in his first year, 2023. They always, in my opinion, they've always made it like, yeah, Volpe is the guy. He is the chosen one. When in reality, I started to wonder if Peraza might be one of those guys that kind of, where did he come from? And the reality of it is he's not old, and I would not be surprised if Volpe doesn't get his shit together Peraza is 24 years old. He's just one age difference than Volpe. And this is somebody who has postseason experience, something Volpe does not have. And he's hit well in the major leagues. He's actually hit above 300 in a small sample size back in 2022. So don't rule out Peraza. And that's kind of my thing, is that Boone said he's going to play a lot against lefties. Why are we making him a matchup guy? Why aren't we just playing him? Like, if you called him up, which, by the way, I was told by one of the commenters in our chat, I was told that Peraza is out of options now. So if they cannot send him down, if they send him down, he has to go through waivers. He'd be gone in 2 seconds. I don't care what anyone says. He has no value. Okay. Put him on waivers and tell me if he has no value. He'll have 15.
Well, he has value on the field. You just play him. And this is the thing. When you say don't write off Peraza, I mean, I agree with that. Yeah, I think he's a good enough player to get some burn on a good team, to be completely clear. But we're also saying you don't have to give up on Anthony Volpe per se.
You don't have to give up on anybody.
You don't have to give up on anybody. But the whole process here is that you both Peraza and Volpe, neither player is good enough where the other player doesn't get an attempt to take the job. And that's where I think the Yankees are right now. Based on games played, they're suggesting that this is the case, that Anthony Volpe is like QB1 and nobody else is going to get any burn. You're not going to get any starting quarterback reps, none of that, right? So I think that's a mistake. I really do. I think it's a mistake as far as his development. We've seen in years past, especially with this organization, putting a comparable player behind somebody who considers himself to be the starter can help them. So maybe that would happen with Anthony Volpe. I don't know. I just don't think Anthony Volpe is a good enough player where you can just tell everybody to step aside. He's the man. And very well in 2 years' time, Anthony Volpe may be the player that we saw. But in order to expedite that and to maximize what the Yankees are doing in 2024, you got to play the players who are playing well. And is Anthony Volpe, has he done enough in his career where you say, we're willing to sacrifice the short term because he's that dude? I don't know. I think that's a mistake. But Jake, I want to make sure we talk about Carlos Rodon and just discuss kind of what we saw today. And I know I kind of gave you a little snippet there that this is starting to be a player that we've come accustomed to because his last couple starts, Carlos Rodon had delivered, right? And this actually is kind of reminiscent of Marcus Stroman. This is another player who, at the very least, in the beginning of the year, he was giving us big performances and he was going deep into games. Aaron Boone was putting a lot of pressure on him to get through the 6th inning, to maybe even go into the 7th inning. And I thought it was a really good job by Aaron Boone. But as the season went on, those players started to wear down. Their performances started to wear down. Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, and you start seeing their ERAs inflate and go back closer to what their career averages are. So again, Jake, when we talk about what we got today, out of Rodon, isn't this a guy with a 4.34 ERA? Isn't this sometimes what you get? You get a player who faces a pretty average Detroit lineup and will go out there and give you 3 1/3. This can happen. So it's disappointing, but you can't necessarily be shocked at this point. You kind of just have to hope when he's got it going is when postseason starts, just so happen.
Yeah, that's the shortest outing since June 21st against the Braves when he gave up 7 runs. So, I mean, I guess that's how I'm going to choose to look at it. It could have been way worse. And to be fair, I mean, was the pitching really the issue today? I wouldn't say so. I mean, I know
bullpen was spectacular today.
Bullpen was spectacular. I know Rodon gave up 4, and obviously 4 in not even 4 innings is a lot. But the reason I say that is because essentially the winning number, the magic number for the Yankees, we've said it till we're blue in the face on this show. If they score 5 runs, they're winning 90+% of the time. That's not a made up number.
What's our record if we score 0?
Bruh.
It was a bad performance. It was a soccer match out there. It's very tough to watch.
First time I think I've really watched the Yankees lineup since the All-Star break where it just felt they were so defeated. They were so overmatched. Like Montero, who's not a great pitcher, looked really great against the Yankees
like Kurt
today.
Schilling today.
Yeah, Holton, he looked great. He gave him 3 innings of bullpen work, 2 strikeouts, only gave up 1 hit. And then Foley came in, and Foley would have given up the game, I think, if Wells had walked there. I really would have liked to see what would have happened, because Foley was all over the place, could not locate.
Yeah, it really seemed like our plate discipline today was just putrid. It wasn't good. And I will say, like, given the strength of Austin Wells, and actually the number one thing that we pointed at in terms of what Soto provided this team and what Austin Wells provides is plate discipline, swinging at strikes, swinging at really good pitches to drive. I mean, you saw a lot of guys chasing pitches outside the zone. Now, you still have to give Montero credit. I think he pitched really well. He was around the corners.
Yeah.
You just got to tip your cap. But at the same time, when they do execute those pitches, you tip your cap. When they fail to execute and they're outside the zone, you need to let those pitches go. Much easier said than done, but we didn't do that job today. And it's not a surprise when guys are hitting corners and you're not laying off pitches outside the zone. You throw up a donut. You're waiting on an Aaron Judge 2-run bomb. And if you don't get that, you're probably not going to get much.
Yeah, and when it's a Stanton day, like one of those bad Stanton days where he strikes out twice, 0 for 4, yeah, you're definitely running out of things that, weapons essentially that can help you win a game. To kind of wrap this thing up, I still believe that they need to send down Ben Rice. I think they're totally wasting him. I wanted to bring that up before we close this out. And I want to say that because, look, I like Ben Rice a lot. I've defended him a lot. I really do like him. My issue is he's wasting his time in the majors. And the reason I say that is because, essentially when he was hitting, he had the 3 home run game and he was really looking confident and comfortable. That was when he was the go-to first baseman. When DJ LeMahieu plugged back in there, that was the problem, is that now all of a sudden, LeMahieu's playing first, and when LeMahieu started playing first, I think Ben took essentially those at bats where we were talking about how great he was. His swing was level. He wasn't. Yeah. Now he's trying to take every at bat because he's basically discouraged from the fact that he doesn't play that often. So he's like, oh, well, I have to make a huge impact in order to play. Well, apparently not, because we just talked about it with Peraza. You can go up there, hit a home run in your debut, season debut, and then not play the next day. That bothers me.
It can't possibly help your development as a young player to play well. And then the very next time out there, when you make a lineup, you're essentially saying these 9 guys are the guys that I think give us the best chance to win today. Now, when you show up the next day and then you put in that player who played well 2 days ago, well, that day probably doesn't translate very well to, like, tomorrow we face Skubal. How well is that going to translate? I'm assuming we're going to see him tomorrow, Peraza. So I don't.
He's a lefty,
I don't know.
so yeah.
Yeah, and I also, this is actually really disappointing. Would it surprise you at all to see Wells out of the lineup tomorrow?
No, not in the slightest.
That's what's disappointing to me. That's disappointing. Yeah. And I'm not saying that Trevino is not a talented enough offensive player where he can't do anything. But
you mean you're not excited for preferential treatment for Marcus Stroman?
I hate it here. That's essentially what. Well, it's
that's
really
on Boone.
That's actually, it is on Boone, but it's also, this is kind of the logic that a lot of people, especially on like Yankees Twitter, they really have this opinion that, let's just say we go into tomorrow, Trevino gets the start. They want to give Stroman the veteran guy. They want to give him Trevino, and they also want to get the right-handed look against Skubal, a really good pitcher in this league, if not the best pitcher in this league. So they go into this performance and they say, see, Trevino had a hit. He had an RBI double. So then they justify why that was the right decision to get Wells out of the lineup. And that's where my bite back is, that just because a player does something that day doesn't mean he was the best choice for the job. You need to put the best players on the field. And if you do that, more times than not, you're going to be rewarded. And that's what we've asked for. The hottest players at the time should play. And if that happens, and we get that figured out, we no longer worry about what a player did in 2022, what he did last year. We don't worry about what he did for another organization. We care about, what do we plan on seeing tomorrow? If we can do that, I think we can build a better lineup that can help Stroman get through this start. But if not, I think putting Trevino in there is just amplifying the pressure around guys instead of having a guy like Wells to help Soto, to help Judge, to help a lot of these guys in the lineup. Well, I feel like putting Trevino in there offensively just puts more pressure on guys that doesn't need to occur.
I agree. It's wicked frustrating. Just this this rotation for things that you don't want to have a rotation for, but then, talking about Volpe and those guys. Yeah. So anyway, tomorrow, Marcus Stroman, Tarek Skubal, that'll be the matchup. Because this game sucked, I have to find a movie that absolutely sucks. Like I'm not going to.
Will it suck? Will the movie suck more than this matchup tomorrow?
Well, we'll try. So let's do. I am going to kind of. I want to give a really bad one. You know what? Let's screw it. Let's go with. All right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna go with Madam Web. It's terrible.
Oh yeah, I never saw that. I was never going to see it, but
I saw half of it and I turned it off. It was just I don't know what the hell was with the dialogue. Like I think they tried hard to make it not suck, and they had a good cast, but the dialogue, it was just a bunch of run-on sentences that felt like actual run-on sentences in the dialogue. It's like no one speaks like that.
It probably could have been like the writers' strike. Remember that? Maybe the writers' strike killed that.
You ever seen I don't know. Halloween 1978, the original?
No, I never saw that. No.
Oh my god. Well, one of the characters in that, his name is Tommy, and the main character, the final girl, if you will, the Scream Queen, Laurie Strode is like taking care of him, like watching him, babysitting him, whatever. And someone walks in and he says, "We are carving a jack-o'-lantern," like exactly like how that sounded. And that, to me, in a nutshell, is how I felt about Madam Web. I feel like that is the dialogue.
Okay, so that movie was reminiscent of our offense today, just lethargic and just lazy and awful. Well, actually, you said it wasn't lazy. You just said it was poorly executed, which I thought today was a bit of both. So Yankees offense was worse than Madam Web. So drop it in the comment section, Madam Web.
Yep. And we'll see who knows how to actually spell Madam Web.
I think I could get that done. I think I could spell that.
Yeah.
What was the thing we said they couldn't spell before?
Reservoir.
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs. Yeah,
Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. You need to see it. So, yeah, that'll do it. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
And like this video.